welcome to Rearranging Formulae and Changing the Subject with Cubits Education. In this lecture, you will rearrange formula and change the subject of an equation. So, the reason that we have to do this is sometimes we use formulas for volume or for speed, distance, time, for lots of different things. And in a formula, you might know certain things that you need, but you might not know something else, and you have to try and figure it out. You'll understand what I mean as I go through the video. So this equation here, it says make x the subject of this formula. So what that means is I want x on its own. So x can either be on its own this side or on its own this side. It doesn't really matter. But because we want it on its own, we kind of have to follow the same rules that we were following when we do solving equations. We have to do the opposite of whatever is happening to x in order to get it on its own. So at the minute we have x here, and x is being multiplied by r, and then k is being added to it. So you can think of these as just numbers that we don't know, and we don't actually have to do any actual maths really. We're just going to move these letters around. Now x is currently attached to this r, and I like to say that because it's being multiplied by it, so it's going to be harder to move first. So we need to concentrate on this k. Now the k is being added to the x, so I want to move that away. And because it's being added and I want to move it over to this side, I want to take it away. Now with things like this, I like to pretend that this equals sign here is a barrier, okay? And I want to move this k over the barrier so that it's away from x. We're trying to protect x and get it on its own. So we're going to minus k because it's being added. So when I minus it, it all moves all the way over to the other side, and we have t minus k on this side, and then just rx on this side. Now the last thing we need to do is remove r, because again we want to protect x and keep him on his own, so we need to move r over to the other side. Now r and x are being multiplied together, and because they're being multiplied I can then divide by r. And if I divide by r, it moves over to the other side, but because I'm dividing, there needs to be this divide line and then the r, and then x is just on its own after the equal sign. So we've just moved the letters around. We haven't actually done anything, okay? Now this is helpful if I know t, k and r. If I know the numbers that there are, then I can use them to find x. So that's why I had to rearrange the equation. Here, if I knew r, x and k, I could work out t, okay? And that's why it's good to be able to rearrange formula. Okay, so in this one we have a bracket. So the first thing I need to do is expand the brackets. So if I expand the brackets, I've got 3 times 3, which is 9, and then the x, which just goes there. And then 3 times a, which is just 3a, but because it's a minus, I put the minus there. So 9x minus 3a. And now I need to make x the subject. I need to get it on its own. So we're trying to protect x here, and we always start with this one because it's furthest away from x. So here I've got a minus 3a. Well, I want to move 3a over the barrier, over near y, because I don't want it near x. Now because this is being taken away from x, this 3a, I'm going to add 3a to this side. Okay, because it's being taken away, I've done the opposite, I'm going to add it. So on this side now, we have y plus 3a, okay, plus, equals, and 9x left on this side. And I'm sure you probably know what's coming next. I want to remove the 9 because I want to keep x on its own. I want to protect x, and they're being multiplied together, so I need to divide by 9. Okay, and if I divide by 9, it means I have to put the line, the divide line, and the 9 underneath, and then x is on its own on the other side of the barrier, or the equals. Okay, right then, now this one is it's still easy, but just a little bit trickier because of the way it looks. It looks complicated, it isn't. So we have c equals x over 4 plus 2. So this bit again, we'll leave for last. Let's do the plus 2 first. If I want to move the 2 over to the other side of the barrier, I need to take it away. So I need to minus 2. So then we're left on this side with c minus 2, okay, equals, still got the x over 4. Now remember, x over 4 means x divided by 4. So I want to get rid of the 4 and get the x on its own. So I'm going to times by 4 because I have to do the opposite. Now when I times by 4, it means I'm timesing all of this by 4, which means I have to write it like this. The c plus 2 has got to go in brackets to show that the 4 is being multiplied by all of it, and that equals x. Okay. Right, again, so trying to get the x on its own. This is another one with an extra step that you're probably not sure of. Now this is the square root. Okay, so y equals the square root of x plus a. Now I want x on its own, and at the minute it's under this root. And I don't want that, I need to get rid of it. Okay, so the opposite of the square root is squared, so times by itself. Okay, so I'm going to move that this square root sign by squaring everything. Now, if I square a square root, it cancels it out. Okay, so it disappears from this side. But I have to square this side as well. So to move it over, I'm going to square it. I'm still doing the opposite. I'm taking this over the barrier by squaring it. Okay, so the squared goes there. So now I've got y squared equals x plus a. Okay, and I just need to remove this a now. Now the reason I couldn't move the a here first was because it was under the square root. I needed to take this away first. So now I just want to remove the a by taking a away because it's a plus here. So y squared minus a equals x, and you've got x on its own. All right, another one is t equals x squared plus 9. So I've got a plus 9 here, and I want to move it away from x. So I'm going to subtract 9. So now I have t minus 9 on that side and just x squared on this side. Okay. Now because I've got x squared on this side, I have to do the opposite of squared. Well, as I just said before, the opposite of square root is squared. So the opposite of squared must be square root. So I need to square root this, okay, and move it over to here, which means I have to actually put the square root symbol in with t minus 9 equals x, and the square disappears because you've done the opposite, you've moved it over, and you've got x on its own. Okay, now this one's a little bit different, and this one's kind of edging into higher territory, I think, yeah. So we now have h equals 3x plus ax. Now we've got two x's, okay, and we only want one. We can't have two. So what we need to do here is factorise the equation. Now we've done factorising, and what we need to do is just factorise this side of the equation. We don't need to worry about h. And when we factorise, if you've not watched the video on factorising, please do. When we factorise, we have to look at both sides of the like symbol and see what is the same, or what we can divide by. Well, we can't divide by any numbers, but obviously we do have two x's, which means I can factorise that equation by taking x out and putting in brackets. So I've divided by x here, okay? So I've put the x there, I've divided by x here, which means 3 is there, and I've divided by x there, which means a is there on its own. Okay, I really urge you to watch the video on factorisation. So now, as you can see, I've only got one lot of x, but it means it's being multiplied by all of this. So because it's being multiplied by all of that and I don't want it, I can move that over to the other side of the barrier by dividing by the entire thing. So I can literally do h divided by 3 plus a equals x, and that's your answer. You've got x on its own. Okay, so now I've got another one a little bit similar to that. However, this time we need to get the x's together. So I need to move my 5x over to the other side by subtracting it. So this is a positive 5x here. Okay, we can tell it's positive because there's no negative symbol. So 5x needs to be moved over the barrier by minusing it so that we've got both x's on the same side. Okay, and then we're just left with b here. Now we can factorise the equation by taking out x and putting a and minus 5 in brackets. And because that means x times a minus 5, we will divide by a minus 5 to get it out of the way. So b over a minus 5 equals x. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is pause the video and have a go at whichever task you think is best suited to you. So we have some kind of easier ones, some medium ones, and some very hard ones in green. I don't know why the hard ones are in green. I probably should have put them in red. But anyway, so pause the video and have a go at some questions that you feel confident with, and as well as some that you probably don't feel too confident with, just so you can practice, and then I will show you the answers. Okay, if you've paused the video, here are your answers. You can pause the video and check through them for as long as you need to and see if you went wrong anywhere and if you can figure out where you went wrong. Just a quick tip, the reason that these have got plus and minus in front of them is because they're in square roots. So if you're writing square root answers, then we do need the plus and the minus in front of them. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. Okay. Alright, so well done. Thank you ever so much for using Cubit Education, and I really hope you enjoyed that lesson, and I'll see you next time.